Ada komandan saya, Pak Yanu.
Ya, kita agak lama-lama dikit nggak apa-apa, soalnya yang kemarin nanti kan. Itu jam 9
Pak, yang di Tunisia segala macam belum dikirim linknya, Pak?
Udah
ya?
Udah sih.
Yang Irak, yang
Irak bukan saya.
India.
India bukan saya. Yang itu aja.
Assalamualaikum, Ibu Dr. Haninun.
Pak Santo.
Ibu di Medan atau di Lampung, Bu?
Di Lampung.
Di Lampung ya. Ini ada Pak Dr. Fris.
Ya.
Guru saya. Terus. Assalamualaikum Pak Dr. Fris. Ada Nadira, calon sarjana.
Assalamualaikum Bu Tina.
Iya, Assalamualaikum Ibu Tina.
Ya baik, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat Bu Haninun, kita dapat A lagi.
Iya, alhamdulillah, terima kasih.
Iya, alhamdulillah. Bu Aminah apa kabar? Yang habis jalan-jalan? Pak Pris, apa kabar Pak Pris? Pak Pris. Suaranya kedengaran nggak ya?
Kedengaran, Bu?
Ini yang join dikit sekali ya, cuma 30, termasuk kita pula.
Biasa OTW di mereka, Bu.
Oh iya, mudah-mudahan. Baik.
Selamat sore Bu Tina, Pak.
Baru muncul ini Pak Dr. Fris. Ini beliau guru saya.
Selamat sore Bapak Dr. Fris. Bisa ucapkan selamat atas pekertinya ya Pak.
Semua orang adalah guru, Pak. Ya.
Welcome again, Profesor Patel.
Yes, Professor Patel, welcome to Indonesia again.
Welcome to Lampung. So one more from Portugal will be at the 5:30 maybe ya, from Portugal. So it's already 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5 minutes past 5.
Iya. Okay, we have to punctually start this meeting. I think.
MC Miss Yola ya, Pak Yan?
I don't know. Ask Bu Haninu.
Ya.
Betul Bu ya? Oke. Assalamualaikum Ibu Aminah, Doktor Kandidat insya Allah. Pak Koordinator LDikti 2 sudah masuk ya, Bu Tina?
Saya belum lihat Pak Yulian, Prof. Yulian saya.
Profil.
Belum.
Belum ya.
Iya. Kasih tahu aja Profesor Patel nggak enak. Orang sana kan on time.
Iya. Jadi rencana gimana?
Mhm.
Kita menunggu koordinator atau
Iyalah.
ya, Professor Patel, we would like to inform that probably will delay several minutes because we are waiting for our guest from the coordinator of the private university in Indonesia as our invited speakers.
How about Professor Adriana ya? He's still
Not yet.
not.
Adriana, hopefully she already get the link ya. Mr. Edwin.
Here is Miss Pepe Pan. How are you, Miss Pepe Pan? From University of Macquarie also, right? Do you hear me, Pepe Pan? Miss Pepe Pan? Dia dari Macquarie juga, Pak.
Iya, betul.
Waktu itu, iya. Alright. Mana ini? Populasi belum ada. Mau apa, Bu, perlu dipastikan nggak apa Prof Yuliansahnya hadir atau tidak? Jadi kalau memang dia tidak hadir, bisa kita mulai.
We will check with Ibu Aninun.
Ya.
Or we are afraid that we are waiting, but the confirmation is not yet.
Yes.
Ya, Ibu Dr. Haninun, ada info, Bu?
Gimana, Pak?
Untuk Pak Koordinator.
Oh iya, sedang dihubungi, Pak.
Ya.
Sorry, Pak. Ya.
Berarti infonya kita 5 menit ya, Nadira ya? Delay another 5 minutes ya. Ini sudah 10, berarti another 5 minutes. Sudah. Mungkin diinfokan Nadira. Microphone-nya Nadira masih off. Suaranya Ibu apa Nadir?
Okay. Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Welcome to the first International Conference on Management, Leadership, and Organizational Science hosted by Pasca Sarjana Universitas Bandar Lampung. Pasca Sarjana Universitas Bandar Lampung is the best private university in Sumbaksel, which is located in Bandar Lampung City, Lampung Province, that is managed by Lampung Administration Foundation. Pasca Sarjana Universitas Bandar Lampung, Indonesia is delighted to welcome you to the first International Conference on Management, Leadership, and Organizational Science with the theme Strengthening Organizational Leadership for Competitive and Sustainable Business Development. As a start of our opening ceremony, we will sing the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia Raya.
Sabar Pak, bentar Pak. Bentar ya.
Okay, for the next, we go on to the speech segment that is going to be started that will be started by the Vice Chairman of the conference. Please be invited, Dr. Tina Miniawati, Barusman SE MBA.
Thank you, Ms. Nadira. And just on behalf of the Director of the Postgraduate from University of Bandar Lampung. Right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Tabipun is a special greeting from Lampung, language to honor their guest, the Honorable Keynote Speakers, supposed to be, he's been here, the head of LLDT Region 2, colleges, students, ladies and gentlemen. In this special occasion, I'd like to say good evening and very warm welcome to all of you from Indonesia and also from Australia. Good morning, my colleagues from European continent, especially my colleagues from Lisbon, Portugal, and from Craiova, Romania. First of all, let's pray and thanks into our God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been giving us some mercies and blessing. Therefore, today we can attend and gather in this first international conference on management, leadership, and organizational science, or ICOM-LOS 2021, in very good condition, even though we are still in the pandemic COVID-19 situation. As we are known today that we are still facing the spread of virus COVID-19, even though in some places the cases are going down in terms of new cases or the number of deaths, but we must be aware that new cases, even with a new variant, could rise anytime. In this current situation, which is limiting our movement physically, makes some participants must join the conference from their home and the other join from their offices. My peace and salutation always be given to our Prophet Muhammad SAW, who has guided us from the darkness to the brightness, from the stupidity to the cleverness, from Jahiliyyah era to the Islamic era. Ladies and gentlemen, in this special moment, I'd like to welcome our keynote speakers, the Honorable First, Professor Chris Patel from Macquarie University from Australia. Nice to see you, Professor Patel. And the second, Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from University of Craiova from Romania, and the third, Professor Ferrazzo, Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa from Portugal. I'd like also to welcome, maybe has been here, Professor Yuliansa, the head of the LLDT Region 2 Palembang, and of course, our moderator today, Dr. Susanto from Graduate School, University of Bandar Lampung. The honorable guests, students, and ladies and gentlemen, we are now together here in Zoom meeting, witnessing the opening of the first international conference on management, leadership, and organizational science, or ICOM-LOS 2021, collaboration with LLDT Region 2 Palembang, which has received generous support from many partners, especially from University of Bandar Lampung, from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa, Portugal, from University of Craiova, Romania, and from Macquarie University, Australia, which has taken us months of intensive in preparation. Extend to you all my warmest welcome by this Zoom meeting link because we are still in COVID-19 pandemic situation. Strengthening organizational leadership for competitive and sustainable business development is our conference theme today. We should expect critically challenges ahead in fully realizing the spirit of the team for more specifics and details focus. We have arranged this series of this international conference every year, and today is the first, which we held at the University of Bandar Lampung, Indonesia, collaboration with LLDT Region 2 Palembang, Indonesia, and also with our counterpart from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa, Portugal, from the University of Craiova, Romania, and from Macquarie University, Australia. My appreciation also to members of the organizing committee and staff that have been working very hard to make this international conference held. I'd like to thank them for their dedication, time, and efforts. I'd like also to thank to our patrons, individual and organization partners, students, and especially graduate students at UBL or University of Bandar Lampung, and volunteers. Without their generosities and full participation, we would not be able we will not be able to do this internal seminar and talk. My very special appreciation to Professor Yuliansa, the head of LLDT Region 2 Palembang. Thank you, Professor, for your presence, and I'd like to ask Professor Yuliansa to open ceremony of the conference later. Thank you all for your presence and participation, and you are all very important part of this seminar and conference to be successful. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of Chairperson, Graduate School Director, University of Bandar Lampung, Dr. Andala Ramaputra Barusman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tina Miniawati Barusman, SEMBA, for the opening speech. And now we move on to the second opening speech by the head of LLDT Region 2. Please be invited, Professor Yuliansa, SE, MSA, PhD, Accountant, CA. Okay, now we move on to the next one. And I am, as the Master of Ceremony today, I am pleased to announce our 3 keynote speakers for today's conference. The first one is Professor Chris Patel from Macquarie University. The second one, Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from University of Craiova, Romania. And the third keynote speaker for today is Professor Marcos Ferrazzo from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa, Portugal. And for the next discussion will be continued by Dr. Susanta as the moderator. The time is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Yola. Let me check with the microphone. Okay. Yes. All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable, our keynote speakers, distinguished guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this prestigious conference, that is the first international conference on management leadership and organizational science 2021 with the theme strengthening organizational leadership for competitive and sustainable business development, which is hosted by the graduate school Universitas Bandar Lampung in Indonesia. In this occasion, we shall have outstanding presentation from our prominent keynote speakers, whom I believe shall enrich our insights and knowledge regarding the theme of this conference. As introduced before, our keynote speakers are Professor Chris Patel from Macquarie University, Australia. How are you, Professor Chris? And Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from University of Craiova in Romania. How are you, Professor Adriana? And then the last, Professor Marcos Ferrazzo from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa, Portugal. All right, now please allow me to introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Patel from Macquarie University. Professor Patel from Department of Accounting and Corporate Governance, Center for Corporate Sustainability and Environmental Finance. He completed his PhD at Macquarie University in 1999 and was promoted to be the position of Professor in International Accounting in 2004. His research program adopts a cross-disciplinary approach to provide theoretical, methodological, and empirical evidence on improving the quality of accounting, accountability, and corporate governance across countries such as Australia, China, India, Malaysia, Germany, and of course, Indonesia. He provides leadership in establishing a globally strong reputation in international accounting research at Macquarie University. He is recognized as a leader in international accounting research, and his research takes into account the importance and relevance of culture and contextual factors, and the findings clearly show that unique social, economic, and political factors of countries cannot be ignored in improving accounting and corporate governance, both within and across countries. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Chris Patel from Macquarie University, Australia. Professor Chris Patel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
I'm very happy to be here with all of you at this international conference. I wish we were there in person to enjoy the delicious Indonesian food and meet the lovely people of Indonesia. But maybe, thanks to Allah, it probably happen next year or year after that, right? So we look forward to meeting you in person. So today, can all of you, if I'm speaking too fast, let me know. I'm going to slow down. And I'm not in any hurry, right? It's 9:30 at night in Sydney, right? So it's a bit of a time difference, and my wife is waiting for me at home, and she was wondering how come I have disappeared. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about something which is very important for all of us in our career. And I am familiar with, I have been a keynote speaker at a number of international conferences in Indonesia, right? And I've also been a visiting professor at a number of universities in Indonesia. Two of my PhD students, came from Indonesia, and now they are lecturers, right? So I have very close understanding of Indonesia. Two of my papers published in international journal deal with Indonesia. So Indonesia is quite close to my heart. And the topic I want to talk about is publishing. In Australia, at my university and across the world, if you are not publishing in the top journals, it is very likely you will be losing your job in the next few years, right? And in Australia, this year, number of staff members at my university were sacked because the research publication was not good enough. They were not publishing in the top journals, right? So it is something that is happening all over the world and is going to come to Indonesia. So, as participants in this conference, I'm not trying to scare you, but what I'm trying to do is encourage you, motivate you, that if you are not publishing and if you're not doing your research in the next few years, we don't know what's going to happen. But throughout the world, right, I've been a visiting professor in many, many countries, right? India, China, Germany, US, all over the world. The name of the game, if you want to be a lecturer, if you want to be a teacher, then you need to publish, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk to you about how to publish in the top journal. So we start right at the bottom, just like a young baby trying to take the first steps, right? We got to start taking the first steps and then slowly publishing in better and better quality journals, right? And the best way of doing this is obviously working with people who have published in the journals, good international journals. On your own, let me tell you, see, I am a marathon runner. I run in races 42.2 kilometers. Okay, so I'm passionate about running. And amongst the marathon runners, there is a saying: if you haven't run 15 marathons, don't talk, right? Only talk about running if you have run 15 marathons. So likewise, in publishing, if you're going to work with somebody, Google, like for example, if you work with me, all you have to do is Google Chris Patel, and you'll get a list of all my publications, and you see. So before you start work with anybody, or if you're going to choose somebody to research with, publish with, make sure, right, that he or she has published. Very often I find that people who have not published work with people who have not published, and that's not going to help you, right? Let me be very honest here, right? So for example, if I want to publish, right, and I know, for example, Tina or Nadira or Susanto, they have published in the top journals. I Google them, I look at their publications, and then I write to them and say, Dr. Susanto or Tina or Nadira, can you please work with me? Can you see that? So be very careful whom you work with. But on your own, it is very unlikely that you can publish in good quality journals, right? The competition is very serious, as all of you know, right? And I'm sure for those of us who are publishing, the number of reject letters that we get, right? You write a paper, you send it, sorry, it's either a desk rejection or whatever it is, right? All of us in this room, including me, right? I'm very proud to say I have a file, right? My file is this big. These are my rejection letters. So everybody gets rejection letters from journals, right? So don't think that simply because I'm a professor and I publish in the top journals. No, everybody gets a rejection letters. How do we my talk today, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'm going to give you theoretical and methodological suggestions to publish in leading international organizational behavior and management journals. Right? So leading meaning, in Australia, we have what we call A star and A ranked, B, C, and those which are not ranked. So when I talk about leading journals, I'm talking about the top 10%, right? It's a slow journey, right? So I'm going to give you some theoretical, right? And methodological method, how to start the journey, right? It's going to take you time. It took me time. I finished my PhD in 1999. Until today, I'm proud to say I'm still a student. And I showed you the number of rejection letters I have got, but at the same time, I've got a very good record of publishing in the top journals in the world, right? So I'm able to, guide you, what are some of the things you need to do, right? I'll start off with a photograph which I really like. Few years ago, before the COVID, I stopped over at Doha in Qatar, right? And I went to the museum. I saw this photograph and I don't know whether it was legal or not, but with my mobile phone, I took this picture, right? So in Iran, during the Qajar dynasty, she was considered to be the paragon of female beauty. The word paragon means she was so beautiful, right? The Shah thought she was so beautiful that there was no one in Iran more beautiful than her, right? So she was viewed as a model of excellence. The word paragon means as a nobody in Iran, according to the Shah. Might not be about the other people, right? So, okay, but can you see now? Look at her lips, and you'll see, you may disagree or agree, but can you see? So the point I am making here is all about perceptions. And therefore, when we talk about studies, okay, so I'll take you to the next slide. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You may consider now, I saw Tina was laughing when I showed this photograph. Some of you may not believe that, right? So, but the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? We all know, right? So it is very subjective. And management and organizational behavior, right? As researchers, right? It is all about how managers and stakeholders arrive at the judgments and decision making. This type of research is called JDM, right? So we study judgments and decision making of managers and other stakeholders, right? So whatever is the subject you are interested in, no, right? So it is the judgment, quality of judgment. Now let's be very clear. What differentiates a successful and a productive company from a company which is not so productive is the quality of management. quality of management, the quality of people, and that is reflected in the judgments and decisions they make. If you look at the top companies in the world, you will find that the quality of judgments and decisions they make, complex judgments and decisions they make, right? They are sound, they are logical. It is based on evidence, it's based on science. It's not somebody's opinion, right? So if you are going to publish or think of researching, then you got to start with how to understand judgments and decision making. This type of research is called behavioral research, right? So behavior of people. We may want to know about the behavior of managers. How do the managers, say, in certain sectors in Indonesia, make certain judgments, right? Whether it is based on financial, is based on leadership aspects, is based on productivity, or whatever else is your topic of interest. So behavioral research from Indonesia. Now, so many people say, people are interested in knowing about Indonesia if the research is good. It's quality research, right? So as researchers, we need to get into the minds of the professionals, right? How do the professionals arrive at the judgments and decisions? So we can talk about managers, accountants, auditors, and stakeholders, right? So these, right? And avoid using students, right? Because studying students is not going to help you, right? In fact, I'm on the editorial board of so many journals, right? And sometimes, I get papers using Indonesian students. Try and avoid it, right? And try and make sure if you're going to write a good paper, right, which is likely to be published in a good journal, then you got to interview the relevant subjects, right? So we want to know how managers make decisions. We don't want to know how students make decisions. We want to know how accountants and stakeholders, right, people who understand, who got the experience, they make the judgments. Now, I'm coming to something which is very important now. So suppose you are writing a paper on Indonesia, right, for an American journal or an Australian journal or a British journal. Remember, we know almost nothing about Indonesia. So it is on you to tell us about the contextual factors in Indonesia, right? The contextual factors. So what do we mean by contextual factors? Let me define for you contextual factors. Contextual factors include cultural factors, social factors, political factors, economic factors, legal factors. Can you see that? So if you're talking about, no matter what your topic is, and if you're going to talk, it's different if you want to publish the paper in Indonesia, right? Then the audience, you don't have to tell them about Indonesia. But if you want to publish in one of, say, the journals that I am on the editorial board, right? They know almost nothing about your background. So you got to tell us about contextual factors. And I'm going to repeat, what is contextual factors? So contextual factors include cultural, social factors, right? There's a difference between cultural and social. Social is more about society. Economic factors, political factors, legal factors, right? Together, these are the contextual factors. Okay, and we all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the cultural factors. However, one thing that I find many researchers, including researchers in Australia, are not familiar with is with acculturation. So what is acculturation? Okay, so the definition of acculturation is when one culture comes in contact with another culture, right? How does the local culture change? For example, as you know, over the last 10 years in particular, in Indonesia, there have been a lot of global influence, right? The globalization has had a serious impact on Indonesia. As a result of globalization, the contextual factors are changing, right? contextual factors are changing. Some of the cultural factors are changing. So acculturation, you must discuss it. So when you talk about contextual factors, you must talk about how globalization. Okay, so if you are looking at, say, environmental factors in Indonesia, about, say, pollution, you're interested in pollution, or whatever else you are interested in, or you're interested in leadership, right? Because I can see the topic of our this is organizational science and leadership. Leadership, nothing takes place in a vacuum. All of these things take place in a context. Okay, so our culture and personality variables, right? So Dr. Suwanto, Tina, and I are three. So Tina and Suwanto are both from Indonesia, from the same university, right? But they each have different personality. And if I'm going to talk about the judgment and decision making, I can't ignore relevant aspects of personality. They cannot be ignored, right? And research is very clear. Over 80% of the differences in work-related values are within countries. So it's within Indonesia, right? Can you see Indonesia is such a huge country, right? Extending right from, one end to the other, right? The other end, Timor, is, almost near Australia, right? So can you see? So we can't talk of Indonesia as one homogeneous country. We can't talk about Indonesian cultural values, right? A few weeks ago, I got a paper from Indonesia to review. It was a good paper, right? But it didn't talk, okay, we all know the importance of Islam in Indonesia, right? I'm not an expert on Islam, but I know enough about Indonesia that if you're going to talk about contextual factors in Indonesia, you must tell us about the influence, the power of the religion, right? In all aspects of life, leadership, government, right? Universities, right? So you've got to give us that flavor, right? Can you see that? Now, you talk about religion in Australia, there is, religion is not very important, right? So can you see? So you've got to talk, and this paper, I didn't reject it. I sent it for revise and resubmission, and I said, now hold on. Tell us about Islam. Tell us more about your contextual factors. Tell me more about acculturation. When we talk about acculturation, the topic that comes to my mind is convergence, right? So Indonesia, right, whether we like it or not, is adopting so many international standards, right? In accounting, they're adopting international financial reporting standards, international ethical standards, right? So can you see? So there's a board called International Ethical Standards Board, right? And Indonesia is adopting those, right? So can you see? So now we've got to provide a rigorous discussion. Okay, so essentially, I am talking about publishing in international journals. So what does it mean, international? So international refers to a paper written for the international audience, right? If you want to publish papers in the top journals, right, outside of Indonesia, then you should write for the international audience, okay? Your implications, like, so you have your findings, right? So why would the findings in Indonesia interest me in Australia or Malaysia or India or China, whatever it is, right? So you got to talk about the impact of that at the organizational level, right? So we all know very often, so you got to differentiate at the organizational level, at the national level, and then go at the global level. Okay, as I said, if your paper examines unique contextual factors in Indonesia that are likely to help professionals make better management decisions, right? So then why should the paper interest me, in Australia? right? Because, I'm on the editorial board and what not, and I review papers for many, many journals, right? And so you got to convince people like us outside, right? So very often I find that the paper is good. Paper, it can be published, but there is something missing. Okay, and what is missing, right, is my objective number one. Okay, am I talking too fast? Is it okay? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So,
Professor.
okay,
It's
thank
okay.
you. If sometimes, I'm a Fijian, I'm from Fiji Islands, and we tend to talk very fast. So if I do talk very fast, just tell me to slow down. So the first objective that you need is to question simplistic assumptions driven by theories of globalization and convergence. So what is developed in Australia is not going to work in Australia, no matter how good it is. Now, let's be very clear. The best practices from the US or anywhere else, even your neighbor, Malaysia, the best practices is Malaysia is not going to work because Indonesia is unique. It has got its own unique contextual factors, right? So let's be very clear. Don't assume what works in another country will work in Indonesia. Now, let's be very clear, right? So these are very simplistic assumptions by theories of globalization. If Indonesia adopts international standards, right, then the problems would be solved. No, right? There has to be a fit between the contextual factors and convergence. The next thing is to help you make an original and significant contribution to the literature. Original and significant, right? If you want to publish in quality international journals. Now, this is where, like, I'll go back to what I said earlier on. To help you to decide whether it is original and significant, work with somebody who has published in top quality journals. Google them, as I said earlier on, right? On your own, you will find it very difficult, right, to talk about making an original and significant contribution. What I'm saying is simple. Before you start collecting your data, before you start doing anything, right, you need to have a proper plan, right? And the first question you need to answer, right? You select your variables, your dependent variables, your independent variables. What is your theory? What is your method, right? Okay, so now one of my colleagues, she's going to talk about experiments. She's talking about experiments, right? Now surveys are being outdated. Not many people want surveys, right? The trend now is to use experiments. And what's an experiment, right? We'll talk more about it, but can you see what I mean? And there's the research method. What method do I use? I find many Indonesians use surveys. Surveys provide some information, but it is, it's got many limitations, right? So you got to be familiar with what's happening in the top journals outside of Indonesia. Okay. So my specific objectives, it has to be, if you want to make an original and significant contribution, then what I have already mentioned, it takes into account Indonesia's unique religious, cultural, acculturational, economic, and political factors, right? This is multidisciplinary. For example, in organizational behavior, you are looking at research from psychology, you're looking at research from sociology, right? And to provide holistic picture. The word holistic, right? Meaning not simple, right? It provides a detailed focus. Okay, so original and innovative contributions. There's got to be something new about it. It's not a study that you simply extend. You take an American study or an Australian study and replicate it in Indonesia. That's not going to work, right? So you know, you got to spend some time looking at it. Okay. Now, here I'm giving you an example of the kind of topics that will interest. You know, okay, in Indonesia, for example, I'm using accounting here, right? So there is the International Federation of Accountants, right? If you are a management researcher or organizational behavior, right? This might not interest you, but the International Ethics Standard Board will interest you, right? So there is convergence of international and national ethical standards. Okay. So ethics, as you know, many of you, I guess you're studying ethics, right? And ethics is such an interesting topic, right? And Indonesia has adopted many international standards. Is it working? Is it relevant? Is it useful? So such questions you need to ask. And so always find a topic which has some global impact. And likewise, management, you have number of management standards in organizational behavior, public sector, right? So your context should be it's very important to identify the right type of topics. And then if you are interested in corporate social responsibility reporting, right? And then we have the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, right? I know many of you are interested in environmental, social, and governance. I see many of the papers, coming out of Indonesia, right? Which is interesting, right? But so many people are doing it. Therefore, you need to ask yourself, is your research making original and significant contribution, right? So environmental, social, and governance issues, right? Within the context of Indonesia. If there are claims to provide investors with decision usefulness environmental information, you can check it, you can find evidence to see whether it does provide useful information, right? So in this slide and the other slides, what I have told you is essentially giving it a global perspective, right? Global perspective, right? And in case of Indonesia, Indonesia has adopted and taken many issues, standards, evidence from other countries, right? Then we need to question this. Is it relevant? Is it useful? How is it likely to work in Indonesia? Or how is it not likely to work in Indonesia? Okay, so here, now this is quite an important perspective, right? If you are going to make a significant contribution to the literature, now there are many fancy words here. I'm going to sort of explain that, right? The old theories that we have been using in organizational behavior and in management is no longer sufficient, right? We can't simply be using the same old theories we have been using for so long, okay? We need theories that move away from the structural functionalist perspective. All right, so the old theories, right, which talk about structure and function, right? You get the structure right, the function will be right, right? This has been extensively used in organizational behavior, right? We need to move away from this old theories, right? Old frameworks, and look for new ones, which are multidisciplinary, right? And multi-perspective approaches, right? And what is the objective of research? The objective of the research is to explain, to predict, right? And provide empirical evidence on complex and contextualized global environment. Okay, can you see? So if you are going to make a significant contribution to the literature, right, then you need to provide empirical evidence on complex and contextualized global environment using Indonesia as a case study. In the old management literature, old organizational literature, the focus very often has been on the legalistic approach. There's one right or wrong answer. That's called the legalistic approach. Now everybody recognizes there is no right or wrong answer, right? Can you see that? It is right or wrong depending on the context. And the approach that is used is called substance over form approach, right? It's called the substance over form approach. In very simple language, it means it depends on the quality of judgment and decisions made by the top managers, right? It depends. Substance over form approach simply means there is no right answer or wrong answer, right? It is a complex environment, you know, in a business or a corporation, or if it's a public sector, right? It depends on the quality of judgments and decisions, right? And if you sort of believe that there is one right answer or wrong answer, then that type of research, believe me, is finished, right? Nobody, right? You know, it's gone. So business strategies, policies, and practices, right? As a force of globalization changes business strategies, policies, and practices. What is the reality? Right? So this is what actually happens. And globalization, can you see the arrows pointing both ways, right? And therefore we come to the most important factor, professionals' judgment and decision-making, you know, within this complex environment, right? We are looking for, we are moving away from narrow approaches, right? Old approaches, right? And towards using something innovative, right? To provide insight. Okay, now that brings me to judgment and decision-making research, what I started off with. Tina, let me know if my time is up, because I can continue talking for an hour now.
Still have another 5 minutes, Professor.
Okay,
Patel.
good. So,
Yeah,
okay, if I've got another 5 minutes, then I'd like to invite my colleague, Pepe, to talk about hair research. And I told you, Pepe has published in the top journals, right, in the world, in the top 10%. And one of her papers, you know, she just today submitted, and she's going to talk more about it, right? So, Pepe, over to you. So,
yes.
Yeah, come over here. Wait, so you can, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just keep down, keep going down. Bit more.
Yeah, which is this one?
Yeah.
Thank you for having me today to present my research and also share my research experience with my Indonesian friends. Chris is my PhD supervisor and also my life mentor, how to develop my research and also develop my career. I actually feel a lot today when I listen to Chris' presentation about the global situation in the higher education sector, because our university actually redundant quite a lot of colleagues. We are safe in a sense that we keep publishing papers in the quality journals. Today, when I share my research experience, I may not talk too much about the paper, which we publish in the Journal of Business Ethics, which is Financial Times 50 journal, very top one, with a high impact factor. But I just want to share some of my experience how to get a paper published. And actually this paper has been rated as one of the top 10 by Journal of Business Ethics in the past 10 years. So, which is very high award of this paper. The paper can be published, and also we won this award because the paper tick all the boxes Chris just mentioned. The paper has the global impact, and the global audience can understand what the paper is about. And we contribute to the literature and use appropriate scientific methods to examine the research questions. So basically, this paper, we examine the influence of native versus foreign language on Chinese subjects' aggressive financial reporting judgments. So we conducted research in China by using the Chinese accounting professionals who can speak both English and the native language, which is Chinese. And we particularly look at whether the Chinese accounting professionals make consistent ethical judgments in English or in Chinese. There's an assumption in the accounting and auditing literature by assuming that individuals and professionals make exactly the same judgments, no matter what language they use. So they believe that the ethical judgment about right or wrong are the result of their thoughtful principles and not influenced by the language. However, the starting point of this project is from my feeling, because I'm bilingual. I'm original from China. I speak Chinese and also English. And then what I feel is that sometimes I make different judgments. But this is only my feeling. It cannot be the research publication. So we actually had the discussion about the bilingual interest in research, and Chris guided me to look for the evidence in the psychology and also the linguistic discipline. So we invoke the theoretical framework from other disciplines. We actually discuss how the culture, mindset, and language being linked together, and then to develop our theory in this paper. We conducted experiments to examine whether the Chinese bilinguals, Chinese professionals, make consistent judgment in Chinese or in English. So experiment has been widely accepted in the high quality journals. Chris already mentioned that survey in many cases is outdated because survey can provide some evidence, but survey cannot provide cause and effect evidence, unfortunately. So what is the experiment? Is actually experiment has been widely used in the medical science, like currently how to prove the vaccine works. The medical scientists, they conducted the experiment. They have different groups, the treatment group and the non-treatment group, and then they compare whether vaccine works or not. So this is the widely known experiment in the medical science. In social science, we examine individuals' judgment and decision making. So we also can conduct some sort of the experiment to find the cause and the effect. So what we did for this project is that we required the subject, the participants, to respond in one language. And then after a few days, we asked the same subject to respond in the second language. And then we compare whether their judgments are consistent or not. So this kind of experimental design is called within subjects. I may not talk too much about the experimental design because of the time limit, but what I want to make the point here is that if you want to publish in the high quality journal, consider using the experiment and to find more tight cause and effect relationship between your variables, and you will have more chance to get published. I'm not really talk more about my findings, but the last thing I want to share with all my Indonesia friends is that find a good mentor and also find good researchers. Chris, you can send an email to Chris. And for this paper and also other papers, without Chris, the paper will never get published. Finding a topic is the first step, and it's very important step because this step decides whether your paper has hope in the A-star in the high quality journal or not. But after you overcome the first step, the second step is also tough, is to reply to the reviewer and the editor's comments. Chris probably already talked a little bit about our revision and resubmit to one of the top journal, which is the Auditing, a journal of practice and theory. This journal is one of the top 5 in US. We actually spent quite long time to reply to the reviewers' comments. And with Chris' guidance, I will be able to understand what the editor and the reviewer really want, and also to respond to them. So this actually comes in a second, but it is still very important. As a junior researcher, we need to get the experienced professors to give the guidance how to appropriately respond to the editor and the reviewer's comments. Some of the comments may be stupid, but you can't really say, okay, your comment is stupid, so we have done correctly. But we need to reply it in a nice way. And also to provide enough evidence to support our points. So this also comes with professors' experience how to handle with the reviewers' comments. Chris, yeah, I think for the time limit, I can't really share more.
Yeah, I think we have, as you can see now, this topic, we just started the topic, and then, we will have to have few more meetings, and, we can talk more about it. But today's presentation was broadly, remember, it is about guidance. I'm not sort of trying to scare people, it's working together, that we can, take some steps towards, developing a good research profile. Okay, so I see I got few chat questions.
Okay, Professor Patel.
Yeah. So I got few questions here. So
yeah.
let me.
Then I think we should move for the second keynote. Then we'll end up with answering questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, one thing I'm going to, there's one question I want to say something, that there are many journals which are charging you money. Don't submit your papers there. If you were to apply for a job and I'm on the chair, many of the journals which ask you to pay money are not proper, not quality journals. These are money making. So there's a lot of going on. So be very careful. Check it with your professors, check it with your supervisors. Don't send American dollars to people. There's a lot of crooks in this industry, let me tell you. All right, so be very careful. Okay, look at it, Google it, and if you're not sure, email me and I'll tell you about the journal, right? But don't start sending American dollars or Australian dollars to many of these journals. Believe me, most of these journals will charge you money. Even if they paid me, I wouldn't write for that. Right? If they say, Chris, we'll give you $1,000, you write an article for me, I will not do it because I don't respect such journals. Right? These are money-making records. Right? So be very careful. Don't fall into the trap. I know some of my Indonesian friends and Malaysian friends have, and Indian friends and Chinese friends have fallen into that trap. As soon as they ask me, I tell them, and most of my time I say it's a useless journal. Don't waste your money, right?
Yes.
So,
Thank you, Professor.
Very clear.
Edwin.
Yeah. Okay, Professor Patel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Patel, for very nice, great talk, and also Dr. Pepe regarding about theoretical and methodological suggestion for improving international business research, and then multidisciplinary and holistic approaches, and original and innovative contribution, and very specific about the practical strategy that we can learn very much from Professor Patel and then Dr. Pepe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will invite our second keynote speaker. Please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker for the second one. For you, for the audience who have questions for Professor Patel, please write down in the Zoom chat box, and then we'll end up at the end of the discussion with your questions, and then we'll invite our all keynote speakers to respond all the questions. All right.
Yeah, and also Dr. Susanto,
yes,
you can give them my email address, and they can email me if they have any issues.
Yeah, sure. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Patel. Okay, right. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our second keynote speaker, Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from University of Craiova, Romania. Professor Adriana is a professor of management at the University of Craiova, Romania. She is Romanian ambassador for Association Francophone de Gestion des Ressources Humaines, and then she's also the president of the Regional Commission of Experts Central and Eastern Europe, and she's also the member of Scientific Council of the University Agency of Francophone. Professor Adriana is teaching and doing research in human resources management, project management, social audit, corporate social responsibility, and negotiation technique at the University of Craiova Faculty of Economic and Business Administration in Romania. She's also visiting professor and in cross-cultural management, human resources management, in the cultural management at many universities in France, Poland, and Latvia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from the University of Craiova, Romania. Professor Adriana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear friends, dear Edwin, your dean, rectors, and the other colleagues that invited me to participate in this very interesting conference. Thank you to Professor Patel and his doctorate students to this very nice and interesting presentation about how to publish in a very good journals and how to find these very good journals, because as Professor told us, are very, very difficult to publish in high journals, but in the other part, we have a lot of journals that are not so good for publication and that requires many money for us. For this reason, today I will present you some elements, and in my presentation, taking into account your relationship with literature and practice and your field of research, you can take some idea and to start to working on some papers. You see my presentation?
Yes,
my
yes.
presentation is on the, okay. I will open my presentation. And my presentation is about the levels of challenges generated by COVID-19 pandemic. As my title presents, inside my presentation, you'll have some elements related to crisis, and not only COVID pandemic crisis, with the other crises that can appear in the next years. For this reason, I will present you two approaches. One approach related to crisis and the other related to next normality period after the crisis. And I will start with some elements. What means this COVID-19 crisis? Because in the last 2 years, we heard a lot about this COVID crisis. I define it that a complex and complementary set of crises. We have not only one crisis, we have a complementary and many crises at the same time. First of all, we have economic and financial crisis, because due to pandemic, economic organization and financial organization has slowly their activity. We have also political crisis, not only in Romania, around the world, we have many political and geopolitical crises. We can see in Ukraine and also Russia and the other parts of the world are under political crisis. What is most important? Humanitarian crisis, it's so high now, because we don't have only humanitarian crisis that was before pandemic. During this pandemic, the humanitarian crises are so hard, and we can see what is happened with a lot of refugees around the world, with the people from underdeveloped countries. And the last but not the least, we have social crisis. After you can see all these crises emerge in this COVID-19 crisis, and everyone can approach one of two or all for type of crisis and to study them related to COVID-19. For this reason, and related with my colleague previous presentation, I can tell you that you will have for every one of these elements very good journals. For example, humanitarian and social crisis can be subject for Journal of Business Ethics, where Professor Chris is editor and reviewer, and my very good friend Edward Freeman is editor-in-chief. I will continue. What is happened with this relationship between COVID-19 and dispersal of responsibilities? I can tell you that dispersal of responsibility, it's one of my concept and theory. I developed it in the last 12 years, and I considered that this dispersal of responsibility is a phenomenon, a negative phenomenon that provide unethical organization with illegal tools for avoid ethics. For this reason, this dispersal of responsibility is emphasized by diversity of institutions. For example, nowadays during COVID-19 crisis, we have World Health Organization that are involved in this crisis. Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, also it's preoccupied by this crisis. United Nations Organization, International Labour Organization, and also government. As you can see, all these organizations and many others are preoccupied by COVID-19 crisis. What means that? That means that information, it's different interpreted and promoted by every organization. And for this reason, big organization, high corporation use dispersal of responsibility for obtaining profit. During COVID-19, I will present you what has happened with this dispersal of responsibility. We have level 1, previous organization that elaborate regulation, guidelines, procedure principles related to COVID-19. Level 2, it's national legislation, like European Union, United States, the other government around the world. Level 3, corporation, organization, public or private, that should adapt this legislation. Level 4, community. All these elements generate corruption, indifference, neglected. All these elements, if you are not provided in the same language, but not language like Romanian, English, French, no. Language of elements, language for entire community, the language that can be understood for Romanian people, Indonesian people, English, French, American peoples. That means common language that can be easy understood for the other and can be very easy translated in what we consider law and legislation. For this reason, we have a lot of dispersal of responsibility. We have, first of all, at a local level, national, regional, international. That is a level related to location. The second level is dispersal of ethical responsibility that generate dispersal of liability, economic responsibilities, social responsibilities, dispersal of environmental responsibilities. You see, we have two big levels of responsibility, and risk are very important for all. We have risk to lose legitimacy and recognition, and for this reason we have a very good example. The approach of vaccination from different category of peoples, from different countries. And for this reason, that means a common language, because this risk to lose legitimacy and recognition is very high during a crisis. Corruption risk, it's very high because as you know, in many countries, some pharmaceutical organization send some not so good medicaments, or in Romania we have many scandals related with what means procuration of medicaments or vaccines, and a lot of people obtain a lot of money with this product. And the reputational risk is very important also. What is the impact on international institutions first? The critics concerning the activity of World Human Organization in this crisis. If you know at the beginning, President Trump, that was in function then, would cut US funding to this organization because he accused the body of being too trusting of China assertions that it had the virus under control. If you see at the beginning, many powerful countries started to dispute between them. Second, some accused of taking too long to recognize that the virus was easily transmitted between humans and particularly to utter the word pandemic. The two elements prove us that dispersal of responsibility is present since beginning in this crisis. Why and how? Why? Because we don't know really the origin of this virus. And the second, how? Because many organizations don't use the same common language. For this reason, the principal interest, United States, European and the other government, Union and the other government, do not converge the ethical principle of the agent. In this case, the principle of the agent is a human human organization. The agent, that is this organization, does not make decision because the task is not its responsibility and the other agent has the duty of the task. What means that? I am a very important organization, but I don't want to take responsibility with by my decision with this crisis. I want to be to stay apart from this problem, and for this reason, dispersal of responsibility acts at many levels of national and international level. The agent considers that the principal wants to transfer the risk and not to empower. In this case, World Human Organization thinks that the main role is for governments because they don't need to transfer the risk and to empower. For this reason, the governments around the world take this responsibility and act in many different ways. For example, some countries use the vaccination, the other use the natural element for eradicate the crisis. The other are in the middle of the crisis and try to help the other. And the sources of information for decision-making process are several and contradictory. Of course, are several and contradictory. If you read a report of one organization about COVID-19, you will find some information. If you read newspaper or social media elements, you will see another approach of this pandemic crisis. For this reason, in this period, dispersal of responsibility it's very flourish and it's in very high development. Why? What it happens this? Because we have agent attitude toward risk, it's not so good. The approach of agent attitude, it's not in the term and in favor of the people, of the community. The second, the organizational change as a result of the decision-making process is very difficult to take into consideration because we have some ambiguity between agents. The organization cannot make provision for many years, for many months, because it's not possible to know what will happen tomorrow, because we have seen many variants of the COVID-19. Now we have, and I hope to be the last, Omicron, and we don't know if tomorrow will be not good or will be good enough. And we have also several contradictory sources of information, and this consists in legislative acts. For example, in Romania, every month is changing. Today, you can go inside the mall. Tomorrow is not possible to go inside the mall. After tomorrow, it's possible to go at work physically. After tomorrow, you will be in lockdown. It's not, you cannot predict what will be after tomorrow. The principle have the advantage over the agent. Why? Principles, it's organization, and agent, it's the executant. We have also the information asymmetry, that it's a theory that can be used for our research and in relationship with agency theory. What has happened with this pandemic crisis? Economic impact. First, production and unemployment. That is very true. And the consequences will be a long term. Will be not possible in 1 year or 2 years to improve this economic impact. The second, supply chain and market disruption. Nowadays, we have seen that at the beginning, the price of petrol and oil was low, and now starting to be higher and higher. The production of cars today has many problems because of some elements. Third, financial markets registered a significant decline because of the uncertainty created by this pandemic. And these elements will be visible in our high debt of our loan. Social impact. We have a racial crisis. We have seen the refugee crisis. And for this reason, we have some questions. It is possible to translate the COVID-19 crisis into a minority crisis at the international level? The answer is yes. And if you will search on internet, you will have that humanitarian and minority crisis is very important today. How will the World Human Organization deals with a food crisis? Because we know around the world, or in many countries, people live with $1 by month, not by day. And that is not possible. Many people don't have usually food for every day. And the last question, why is it important to understand how the dispersal of responsibility action at every level? The answer of this question is very important, because if we understand that dispersal of responsibility generate the other crisis, and also together with COVID-19 crisis develop the uncertainty and social and economic negative impact, we will understand how we can diminish or avoid dispersal of responsibilities. Solutions. We have many solutions, but more important, it's reorganization of the international, regional, national, and also local organisms to converge them together and to have the same rules. And if they break the rules, the same sanction should be applied. For example, we don't need 5, 6 ministries in our country, for example. For example, in Romania, we have Ministry of Economics, Ministry of Family, Ministry of Law, of Work, Ministry of Young People, and so on. We have many ministries that have the same object of activity, peoples. peoples can be managed by only one ministry that apply the same rules for everyone, and if breaks the rule, will be sanctioned, and will be very easy to be sanctioned because it's very only one, not 5 or 6. The next, elaborating common legislation for organization that acts regardless of the location, country, region, in each it's behaved in an irresponsible way. For example, we need for medical crisis of this COVID-19 pandemic, some regulation to be applied. And the core of this regulation should be peoples, the sanity of the peoples. Solution, again, evaluating the ethical character of philanthropy is very important. And the next, the sanction have to be according to the severity of the socially irresponsible activity of the organization. Only we have seen since history, and not only in our country, but around the world, that only sanction give results in pandemic situations. The other solution, legislation, and I discussed before about that, transparency and visibility is very important because we have a lot of information that are not transparent, it's not visible for us in every moment. And we have to encourage the company disclosure of social and environmental information, because why it's important to disclose this information? Because pandemic crisis, it's a complementary crisis and complex crisis. And for this reason, we should take into account every day, every time, social and environmental information for our personal life. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you, Professor Adriana. Now we'll check about our keynote speaker, the third keynote speaker, Mr. Edwin, Mr. Iwan. All right, so while we are waiting for our third keynote speaker, I believe there are many questions here written by participants addressed to Professor Patel and Professor Adriana. So shall we get one of the questions, Professor Adriana? Yeah. Okay, I pick up one question while we are waiting for our third keynote speaker. Professor Adriana, the questions about how to build a more strategic formula when the two factors become a synergetic space. It is the question for from Dr. Ahmad. Yes, Professor Adriana, the mic.
Sorry, my macro.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this question. The answer is not easy, but it's very important. Don't find a more strategic formula, because it's not possible to have only one formula. And to become a synergistic space between economic and social impact. We have economic and social impact, two elements that impact us as people. And we are, as people that need economic resources and also social life. And for this reason, we need to combine and to do this synergy between economic and social, and to try to see how dispersal of responsibilities act in our life. For example, we are professor at university. That is our economic impact. For example, salary is not so good, or time we work a lot for the same money. And our social impact, it's our life. Today, our social impact is limited by COVID-19 crisis. And synergic formula is to accept the limitation of our social life and to try to improve our economic life. For this reason, in the next normal and after this pandemic crisis, taking into account the improvement of our economic resources, we can develop and improve our social space. And that is the relationship. Economic all the time will be above social life. And why? Because we are usually use and spend a lot of money and a lot of time for our work and for our professional life.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Adriana. There is another question regarding about the solution you offered in your presentation. That is about the evaluating the ethical character of philanthropy. Could you mind elaborating more by taking example in Romania or other countries? Probably you have more ideas to share with us. The evaluating the ethical character of philanthropy.
For example, I don't know if you have if you have a lot of Vodafone, Orange, or something else, phone and TV and the other companies, or also banking. Two examples. One, banks in Romania on their website has a lot of project for young people, for people with disabilities, for orphan and something else. This project represent only as philanthropy only 1 or 2% of their benefits. But in the other part, they practice banking, huge for credit, I don't know now, I have a lapsus, the name of, we pay for credit every month, rate of, we pay every month a credit and a huge rate of these elements. And that means difference between philanthropy and unethical behavior. Because if you need to help a community, you start helping all people of the community. And the other company, phone company, they also have a lot of projects, but they practice very high price for abonnements or for the other services for the other clients. For this reason, philanthropy, if it's not related with the help of the people of entire community, is not a really philanthropy. Philanthropy is used only for a part of community. That not means that it's a real philanthropy. For example, we are a family, 5 members, 3 children and 2 parents. And the parents give money only to 1 child, and the other 2 children don't receive the money. That is philanthropy? That it's a real and ethical philanthropy? No, because all the 3 people need to receive money and in the same account if they need to help. Or if a urgency and one son or one daughter needs at the moment a lot of money, they have to discuss with the other 2 when manage the money and when the other 2 children will receive the difference. That is reality of philanthropy. I don't say that the people don't, the companies, because about companies I speak here, don't make philanthropy, but together with their philanthropy, to take into consideration entire community. And by my example, I explain what sometimes philanthropy is unethical. Philanthropy is unethical only if for some peoples or from only one part of community.
Okay, thank you, Professor Adriana. For participants who would like to ask directly, you can raise your hands through the system in the Zoom. And while waiting the audience for asking directly to Professor Adriana, I would like to have probably comments from Dr. Tina.
No, it's nice. Give the other. I'm still waiting for the participant to ask some questions. Thank you, Dr. Susanto.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tina. Yeah, now Dr. Ahmad probably would like to ask questions directly to practice English. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad. Yeah, your question has been responded by Dr. Adriana. For the participant who have a question for Professor Patel, the question will be sent directly to Professor Patel by the committee because there is something problem with the system with Professor Patel in Australia. And then for those who would like to ask questions, write your question in the Zoom chatting. Yeah. Yeah, Professor Adriana, there is another question. If we try to relate with what have been discussed with Professor Patel regarding about publication in specific issue and then the strategy, and then we would like to have probably you share your ideas regarding about how we could publish in a very high reputation journal regarding about specific expertise of the participants. The mic, please, Professor Adriana. Yes.
First of all, when we start a research, and for example, we are PhD students or we are professors, we have a field of research. For example, motivation. We want to do a research on motivation. We need to find in literature and in a very good journals by keywords motivation articles from the last 5 or 6 year maximums. After we will have a database with many articles or books or chapters of the books, we should spend few days and see what the other did before. And we will start to see the relationship between variables of the studies that the people and the scholars studied and published in a very good journal. After few days, we need to see where we will do our research. The organization, people as individuals, public, private organization, we will establish our target, our sample. And next stage, after we establish who will be the actor of our research, we will draw a questionnaire. And our questionnaire is preferable at the beginning to have some variables and items from the other research. And you will see, for example, intrinsic motivation from X and Y in 2021, for example. And we will draw our questionnaire, we will send, we will receive the information, and we will see that if our results are in consensus or not with our research with the other scholars. And we can argue that our research can be original because it's in different cultural organization, different cultural countries, different legislation, or something else. Some person asked me, what is the difference between originality research and library research? Both are very important. Library research, it's literature review. And our article usually has abstract, keywords, introduction, literature review, methodology, results discussion, conclusions, and references. These 9 parts are usually in the same article. Library research is very important if we want to do a study of what it's doing before, and we want to critically analyze what it's already written, and to present some parts. In many journals, and every journals publish this kind of library research. But if it's very good, and if, for example, you can study intrinsic motivation since beginning of the century until today in many journals. If you find with keyword motivation, you will see the article, you will make a table, and you will organize this research by country, for example, by period, or the other criterions that you want to do. And originality research, it's your contribution. And in originality research in articles is related in, first of all, in hypothesis, methodology, results, and discussion and conclusions. Introduction is related with entire paper, and literature review, it's a justification of your hypothesis and of your research. For this reason, you cannot have a very good article without a very good justification but literature review. Because without literature review, you cannot justify the originality of your paper. What is different between your research and the other research? Because I told you, many people study these topics. The other question, in context, the Scopus, what the new topics interests now related to sustainability? Many topics. Depends on your research field. For example, give me Nurdia Vanisha, give me an example of your field of research, and I will give you some new topics interest related to sustainability, if you want. Because, for example, with CSR maybe, yes, CSR is very, very large. You can have ethical or unethical behavior of the company, green management of the company. You can have on CSR, for example, elements related to development or the answer to the crisis of some organization. And you can develop these elements in relationship with philanthropy or the other approach. CSR, it's a very, very large field of research. And if you take one part, you can improve, and you can apply to collectivity or community where do you want to develop this CSR context. For example, tell me what did you write as last articles? Title or subject of the last research, of your research? Only title or some subject, main subject? Okay. The other question.
Yeah, Professor Adriana, another questions. Some experts told us that the potential to be to have their work published in a high reputation journal is the collaboration between universities, expert, or even expert across countries. In your experience, how could we build? Sometimes we are very difficult to find expert from out of Indonesia who would like to collaborate with us. So, in your experience, since your earlier career as a professorship, in your professorship, probably there is a strategy that we can adopt or we can learn from you.
First of all, you can find people that you already know, because every collaboration, every cooperation between people from different countries is based on friendship. If you know people that want to work with you on an article, it's very good to send an email or to call on WhatsApp and discuss about your idea. And after that, to clearly establish the roles. For example, you have an idea to write an article and call me, for example. We discuss about idea. And we discuss as previous, and I can tell you, together we'll draw the questionnaire. After that, you and the other colleague of you can start to work on hypotheses based on our questionnaire. When you receive the answer to questionnaire, for example, I can do the part of methodology, for example, by SPSS or Smart PLS. I give you the answer and we'll establish together the discussion of the results and interpretation. All time, it's very important to work as a team, because usually some scholars, very well known and with a lot of publication, prefer to put their name on the article without any contribution. And that is not so good, because your article will be rejected and you don't know why. And for this reason, every member of the team, every author of the articles need to have very clear responsibilities. Also, this is related to dispersal of responsibilities, because sometimes one or two authors do the work, entire work. And for this reason, they don't not see outside approach of the article. But when the third or the fourth author come and read and improve the articles, will be a very good articles. Because a mistake that is not seen by one or two author can be seen for the fourth or the fifth author, and the article is improved. For example, this year I published together with another 5 colleagues an article in Journal of Cleaner Productions. And everyone has a very good responsibilities. Everyone was preoccupied together we made the questionnaire, and after that we share the responsibility related with hypothesis. Every colleague written a literature review related to hypothesis that he chosen. I work on methodology. altogether or on discussion and conclusion. And I sent the articles to journals in November last year. And in January this year, the article was published. We received the answer of the reviewer. And after first review, the article was published. But pay attention, our answer to reviewer was about another articles, about the number of words we use for the answer were about 5,000 or 6,000 only the answers. And for this reason, sometimes authors don't pay attention to answer to reviewer. Only send, yes, I did, I do, done, without explain what is did, what is done, how improve it, how answer directly to the recommendation of the reviewer. And for this reason, after second review, the article is rejected again. It's hard also to answer to reviewer.
Okay, yeah.
Question.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Adriana. Thank you very much for attending our questions from the participants. And then thank you very much for the participants attending the conference, the talk delivered by our keynote speakers. So we have a break for some times because we are still waiting for our last keynote speakers from Portugal. The information from the committee, it will be around another 90 minutes, yeah, another hour. So it's a we will have a small break. Thank you very much again, Professor Adriana. And then
thank you very much.
Yeah, and then for the participants,
don't forget, you have my email address, and you can give to participants, and we can discuss about some topics or some relationship.
yes, sure. Very nice. So the participant, you will get the information about the email address of Professor Patel and then Professor Adriana, and also for Professor, our keynote speakers. So you can do communicate with them regarding about further questions or further research that we would like to collaborate with our keynote speakers. Yeah, there's something like that, Professor Adriana. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Adriana. And then the floor now is given to Ms. Nadira Fayola, DMC.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Susanto, and our amazing keynote speaker for today. And yeah, we will have a break for some time because we will wait for another keynote speaker for attending today's conference.
For how long we have to have a big break for this conference?
Information, Pak Iwan?
I think about what a house, 1 hour.
1 hour?
Yeah,
it's quite long.
We'll have dinner together in post-graduate school. Okay.
As is, we have that. We hope to all the participants still join us for the next 1 hour. All right. I think I have to leave first to this because I have to care my my mother person. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Tina.
Thank you, Ibu Tina.
Thank you. I will be back 1 hour next. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for the honorable participant, please don't leave the Zoom meeting because we will continue our conference later. You may have a break. Thank you so much.
Yeah, probably Pak Iwan, a video about UBL. I think it's very nice to share. Yeah. or the movie Kuch Kuch Hota Hai from Pak Yano.
Hello, Professor Marcos. How are you? Hello.
Hello,
Hi, hello. How are you?
how are you doing?
Yeah, we break because with you. So now we can start again. Are you ready for this?
Yes, of course.
Okay, Mr. Santo, please.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Professor Marcus. Welcome to
Nice
Indonesia.
to meet you all. Thank you very much.
Oke, Nadira mungkin diawali dulu.
Okay, sir. Okay, to all the honorable participants and our amazing keynote speaker for today, welcome back to International Conference on Management, Leadership, and Organizational Science with the theme Strengthening Organizational Leadership for Competitive and Sustainable Business Development. And for now, we will continue today's conference with our last and amazing keynote speaker, Professor Marcos Ferrazzo from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa, Portugal. And for the next discussion, we'll be continued with Dr. Susanto, PhD. The time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Nadira Fayola, as the MC of the conference. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, dear participant of our conference, we have now our third keynote speaker, Professor Marcos Ferrazzo. Please allow me to introduce Professor Marcos Ferrazzo. Professor Marcos Ferrazzo, he's a specialist, MSc and PhD, and also a postdoctorate in management. Currently, Professor Marcos is teaching at Chapeco University. Is it correct, the pronunciation, Professor Marcos?
Yes, it was my previous institution. Nowadays, I am working as assistant professor in Autonomous University of Lisbon. But yes,
yeah,
it was a former university I worked at, yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, now and then I would like to inform you that there are many prizes and awards. Yeah, for example, in March 2018, he got highly commended award winner of the 2017 Emerald SEFMD Outstanding Doctoral Research Award in the Management and Governance category. And award in January 2011, Homenagem aos Alunos Premiados Periodo 2008-2010, Reitoria Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, UFRGS. And then award in January 2010, Corps Saint Lazare International Fabian Stenzeichen, Cruz de Merito CSLI Corps Saint Lazare International, Vienna, Australia. Wonderful, yeah. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Marcos Ferrazzo from Portugal. Professor Marcos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will share my presentation with you now. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, wonderful, yeah. You are using a figure, yeah. Fantastic. So
yes, I am always,
yeah?
always trying to use something that is very local, since I am giving many lectures and I try to introduce something from your culture, that means.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Marcos.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be invited by Edwin. Edwin, that's it? Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation and also for fitting my schedule. As you may know, I am really, really busy during this month and especially with the end of the year. So thanks for attending all my requests, because it was really tough for me to organize everything and the agenda. So my main discussion here today is to present you some future avenues of research in the circular economy. That is a theme that is growing interest in the scientific domain, but especially in the business management literature and also field of study. So I'm going to present you the main results of one paper that is related to the circular economy business models. So this is all based on the small and medium-sized companies and business management field, as you can see. And I am going to present you 3 ongoing projects that we are working with different people in many parts of the world. The first is the circular economy and SMEs. The third is related to the industrial symbiosis of SMEs and the local circular economy system. And the last is the public strategies for supporting circular economy. So the first one is already published and it's available in the Business Strategy in the Environment Journal. You can find it freely available if you will. You can just put the name of the paper or my name. You can find it. It's circular economy business model, the state of the art and future avenues ahead. We have published it in the last year, yes, 2020. So we all know that circular economy is related to the closing the material loops in the industrial ecosystems. That is related also to the 4 R's, that is recycling, repairing, refurbishment, and also remanufacturing, in order to avoid the waste generation and also the use of sources of energy of non-renewable sources. So in this paper, especially, we were focusing in the current state of the art, of the literature, about the concepts in the circular economy and also related to the business model literature. And a second research question was where is the research field of circular economy's business model going, and what are the merging issues related to this topic? So of course we identified about much less than 250 papers published at that time, but we can see that the interest in both things are growing, especially from 2017 and most in the 2019, and probably in 2020 we have way more papers, and that is representing the growing interest of the scholars in such kind of relationships. So we can see here that the leading country in the world regarding these topics is United Kingdom, followed by Sweden and also Italy, as you can see in the number of published papers. We can see that they also identified the main sources of publication. They are related to the Journal of Cleaner Production, Sustainability Journal, and Procedia Journal, also from Elsevier. And now we have also identified the most cited papers as usual in any bibliometric studies, like Geisdorfer, Kircher, Murray, Boken, and everything else, okay? So what we have done with this data set was to run a Voice Viewer software in order to identify the networks that could be formed in the themes and also in the authorships. So we have identified these networks of key themes, and we were intrigued in knowing a little bit more on how the themes are related to each other and which themes we need to develop more in the field. This is the future avenues of research. So we can see here that the current state of the art that is related, for example, to the business model. Most of the papers are dealing with this topic and also the circular economy as expected. But we can see that we have a new term used by scholars that is the circular business model. So this is a new finding that we identified, and it's very, very interesting. And the other key issues related to the topics are values, supply chain, and also transition. That means the transition from the linear to the closed loop supply chain, or the circular economy, the way of transition from one business model to another. And also we have identified some new issues related, for example, to the resource, waste and reuse. And as you can see here, waste is way more developed than reuse, for example. So we can see that many of the future research could be addressing the term of reuse in the perspective of business model and also in the circular economy approach. So we identified some general topics related to the business model and circular economy, of course, and also related to circular business model. That is one novel finding that our research identified. And we also identified some groups of themes related to the product, to technology, industry strategy, and sustainability. And then we provided several examples of future research that could be done, and also providing the key references that the authors can address in order to advance in the field. So, for example, here we can stress one just for presentation purposes. In the product, we have the business model designed for risk reduction in product service offerings related to the retained ownership. Or even in the technology, for example, how companies can combine smart manufacturing within their circular business models. So all of these things could be themes for future research projects or future thesis projects and everything else. So it always depends on the interests of the readership in going forward with this kind of themes of research. And also we have identified in the industry and the strategy also, for example, in strategy, how circular strategies shape circular business models and vice versa. We needed to better identify how these dynamics are shaped and which way the researchers can identify empirical findings from these kind of relationships. And also in sustainability. You can also, of course, you can go to the full paper that, as I said to you, it's freely available. You can read it all if you are interested in advancing in some of these topics. And I encourage you in visiting this paper and reading it all in order to get aware of what can be extended in this field of study. So some unexplored themes that we also identified thanks to the Viewer network that we were analyzing is in the management and strategy. We can see that many things can be done in relating these two topics, that is the business models and the circular economy, as you can see here. Sorry. I can give you one example: the discovery, creation, and sources of business opportunities that boost new business models in the circular economy paradigm could be one of this kind of research that could be extended. In the supply chain, we can also focus on supply side terms that we have, for example, the last one, how SMEs may overcome the barriers in the circular business model implementation. And also in the demand side, we have other key things like the role of digital technologies in supporting the development of usage-focused servitized business models. So as you can see, it was really a prolific research. We also identified in the scholars that could be more interested in themes related to the networks. For example, we identified how actors in the network manage resource flows when cooperating in the context of circular economy. We have nothing about that in the research field. And also in the performance, we have, for example, the understanding of the performance in the context of the circular economy. We don't know much things about the role of or how to achieve the performance by using circular economy paradigm in the business models. And also, of course, it's as expected, the context is playing a key role when we deal with circular economy and business models, because companies are can be devoted to exploit some opportunities in the environment. Then it's also related to the context. So this is because it's needed to consider the context, and future research may advance this kind of issue. So I'm going now to present some ongoing projects. The first is related to specifically to the SMEs. We have very much focusing on SMEs in this second research that we have prepared with colleagues from Brazil. In the context of circular economy, you already know, but the main point is most of the SMEs, they are not being so much studied when it goes to the circular economy paradigm. That means we have more research being done for big companies, as for the cutting edge industries. But when it goes to the SMEs, we can see that much more can be done in this field. So it's representing our research gap, not only in the empirical field, but also in the theoretical domain. So this is because we stated this research question on how is characterized the knowledge structure of the literature related to the circular economy and SMEs. So we have also used the Scopus database, and we retrieved only the papers published in this or relating these two different topics, and we identified 4 different clusters in this network analysis, and we have used the site space to use or to perform the analysis. So we identified by putting the layers of or splitting the networks. I mean that the groups that were formed in the network, we were able or capable of identifying that we have one cluster that is the emergent cluster, the cluster 0, that is focusing on the circular economy in general. And now we have the cluster number 4, as you can see in the screen, that is more focusing on the SMEs. And the 3 layers that are in the middle, that is the clusters number 1, 2, and 3, they are more related to interconnecting the circular economy and the SMEs. As you can see, the lines are very poor. We don't have that much connections. The theme is really new. We don't have that much things being done in this field. So this is representing a research gap that we also intend to contribute to the literature and also to the field of study. So we can see many things from these clusters, as I have already introduced you. So all the things that are related to the circular economy, they are in the cluster 0. We have some exemplary papers like Ghisellini, that is one of the most referenced there. The cluster 1 is one of the clusters that is representing the both things, and we can see that we have circular economy, entrepreneurial ecosystems. We can see that we have sustainable business models. We can see that these papers that grouped in this cluster, they are more related to the both things. And we have, for example, one key paper in this strand is the leader and Rashid, published in 2016. In cluster number 2, we have almost the same, but we have some very specific words. And here is the first one that we have SMEs appearing. And we have 3 different papers from Kircher, Korhonen, and also Geisdoerfer, the most cited references in this cluster. Cluster number 3, we have more about business strategy, more about the sustainable development, and less with the circular economy. So that means we are approaching the clusters that are more related to the SMEs. In this kind, we have Urbinati and all, and also Geisdoer for another reference as the most cited. And the last one is the cluster number 4, when we have more related to the SMEs, and we have the key reference of Ormazabal and all. Here you can see how we have a turning point in the field. You can see that up to 2015 we have the emergence cluster that is in yellow and in green, and the growing cluster that is the second stage of development in the field is from 2016 to nowadays, and it's represented in the orange and also in red colors. So we can see the emergence state and also the nascent stage. We were able to identify the most representative papers in each strand. This paper is already available in my ResearchGate profile. If you will, you can have the access to this paper. So this is a project that I am guiding right now. I am supervising the researchers. We are dealing with the local circular economy systems of pharmaceutical SMEs. So we have focusing on the industrial symbiosis in the way of understanding through the business ecosystems. So we were focusing on this concept of Rincon Moreno, the local circular economy system. And then we are also focusing on the 9R framework for the pharmaceutical companies, that is refuse, rethink, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, and recover actions towards circular economy. So this is the goal of our research, is understanding how these companies are managing circularity of resources and waste at their micro level. That means in the way these companies are acting nowadays. This project is under development. We are already scheduling the interviews, and we expect to reach some results. And the other project is related to the public strategy in supporting the circular economy through the entrepreneurial ecosystem. In this project with colleagues from France, we are dealing about how the government can support the use or fostering the circular economy, especially to the entrepreneurial ecosystems and, of course, the SMEs. So our research question in this project, that is another one, is how do regions translate the government's policies to develop entrepreneurial ecosystems towards circular economy paradigm? So we are still dealing with this research. We are focusing right now in some reports from the French government, and we are still analyzing the data. But we can see that some initiatives from the French government are related to the renewable energies actions, and that is really interesting because it's a very costly domain in which the small businesses make profit from. So this is one of the very first finding we have from these projects. So that's my presentation. I hope to not pass the time. This is my email address if you want to contact me directly. And also if you want to have some information of my research, the research I have carried in the last months, you can visit my ResearchGate profile, okay? So thank you very much once again for the opportunity to be with you today. And I hope that you have learned new things today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Marcos. We have several questions, but probably Dr. Haninun would like to ask directly. Oh yeah, okay, I'll read the questions, yeah. Professor Marcos, it is the questions from Dr. Haninun. Is circular economy business model related sustainability and CSR issues? If it is related, then what kind of issues are available right now?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Well, the sustainability in a general way of speaking, of course, we have many actions already being taken by many companies. For example, when it goes to the ISO regulation, we have already some initiatives that the companies need to accomplish. So when it goes to the circular economy, well, it is more depending on the pressures from the different communities, that is, for example, consumers or governments, initiatives from governments in order to foster the use and the possibility to enter in the paradigm of circular economy. So that's the way at least I am seeing. And it's not mandatory nowadays to enter in the circular economy, but I believe that most of the business models for the future, they must address these. And I can see especially in the pharmaceutical companies, because they are very pollutant companies. So this is the main issue we can see in the companies. So when it goes to the CSR, you mean the corporate social responsibility, that's it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so when it goes to the circular CSR, of course, circular economy is something that the company needs to introduce as a CSR practice, and not only the policy of the company, but they need to address these. And of course, we are not dealing directly to the circular economy as a concept, but the actions that a company needs to foster and to implement in the daily life of the company, these are the actions that is important the most, because you can see directly the results of the actions that a company can implement in the daily life. So it's more important, for example, than for example, discussing the concepts. Of course, the academia, the scholars, we are discussing many concepts in the theoretical way, but much more needs to be done in the practical worlds, And this is because we need pretty much the companies in order to implement what we are thinking and discussing in the academy. So this is because we need to pay attention also to this kind of practices.
Yeah. Okay. For the next question, Professor Marcos, it is the questions from Miss Yola. Yeah. What do you think about focus companies just for business and environment? However, for social, it is limited. What do you think about it?
As I understood, the companies that are focusing, for example, they are saying that they are in the sustainability, but they are not. Is like that or not? I'm not sure if I got the point. Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah. What do you think about focus companies, for example, for business and environment? And then, however, for social, it is also limited. Probably, yeah. Probably Ms. Yola would like to elaborate your questions. Ms. Yola is available here.
Okay. No? Well,
yeah. Okay.
So for the social matters, of course, we have when it goes to the circular economy, of course, we can have an approach of understanding the circular economy in the social way or the implications in the social domain. So I'm not fully focused on such kind of focus, I mean. But yes, we have many issues, many things to be done, because the circularity of not only the businesses but also the economy in a whole, of course, will impact all of us. So it needs to be an inclusive system. In such matters, I believe that some portions of the populations and also the society, maybe they can put it aside of this process of transition. So we need to guarantee the inclusion of all the elements or all the actors of an ecosystem in order to introduce them in the circular economy paradigm.
Okay, thank you, Professor Marcos. We have another questions. There are many questions on the list, Professor Marcos. Okay. It is from Dr. Ponijan. Are any connections between business and human rights and sustainability CSR issues? Are there any connection between these kind of things? Business, human rights, sustainability, CSR. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for the questions, also for the previous questions. That's very interesting thing. I was not thinking about this, but of course, I would say yes, because we can see that we have nowadays, we have some issues related to the migrations, for example, and human rights. And of course, we can see that we may face some imbalance in the circular economy thanks to the migrations, for example. So we need to be aware on this kind of topic, a research topic. And I really encourage you in going forward for conducting a research and trying to identify how the field of studies is structured according to these topics. I personally, I don't have any information about human rights and sustainability and also with the circular economy, because I'm always focused on the business management domain. But I believe it's a very interesting topic to be explored in future research, maybe some bibliometric research and an initial exploratory research that could be done. So I really encourage you in going forward and explore it.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, Professor Marcos, there are many questions waiting to be read by me as moderator, but unfortunately, we now at 9 p.m. So we are afraid that our participant would like to take a rest because it's quite late at night. So thank you very much again, Professor Marcos. And we would like to invite Dr. Tina for the closing statement as the representation from the postgraduate director. Yes,
Thank
please,
you very much.
Dr. Tina.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dr. Susanto. On behalf of the director of the postgraduate program, University of Bandar Lampung. So I think we are good for now. We've got more knowledge and valuable insight about the strengthening organizational leadership for competitive and sustainable business development. And thank you very much for our honorable keynote speakers. Thank you for Professor Chris Patel from Macquarie University from Australia. Thank you for Professor Adriana Burlia Shiopu from University of Craiova from Romania, and for the last, Professor Marcos Ferrazzo from Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa from Portugal. And then, of course, for all our honorable participants, and in here, it was very pleasure to being with you all today until tonight. So that we have to end this seminar, I think this conference, and back to the Master of Ceremony. Again, thank you very much for you all. This Miss Noria.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Adriana, for the closing statement. And now we are already at the end of today's event, and I would like to say thank you to all the keynote material for the material that already provided in today's conference, and to all the participants. To us, please turn on the camera because we will have a photo session for a while. Okay, we are waiting for the others, and Pak Iwan will take the picture ya Pak ya.
Okay, thank you Nadira.
Sorry Nadira, I forgot your name.
Yes.
Please turn on the camera.
Smile, yeah.
I will take a
Smile.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we need all the picture of us. I think only Nadira is the biggest one.
Maybe we will wait for well. Okay.
Okay. Ready? We have 2 slides. Okay, at the first we'll take ready 3, 2, 1. Okay, and the next slide. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Marcos.
Thank you very much,
for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep safe.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Okay.
Yes, and I would like to say thank you once again, and I would like to extend the appreciation to each and every one of you for attending today's conference, and see you on the 2nd International Conference on Management, Leadership, and Organizational Science. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.